Thank you, Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer, for the opportunity to join in the debate piloted by the Minority Leader in support of the development of a remote workforce management policy to be implemented throughout all divisions and agencies of the Tobago House of Assembly as a matter of urgency. Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer, permit me also to express my sincere gratitude to the Minority Leader and Area Representative for Darrell Spring Wim, Assemblyman Kelvin Morris, for the opportunity to serve alongside him as Minority Councillor. I also wish to express my deep appreciation to the People's National Movement for the confidence reposed in me to serve in this capacity, as well as all the persons who have called, messaged, prayers, sent prayers, advised, and supported me in this journey thus far. My sincere appreciation. Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer, I stand in support of the original motion as we are in unprecedented times, and unprecedented times require unprecedented and out-of-the-box solutions. Deputy Presiding Officer, in my contribution to this debate, I will focus on the following: the benefits and opportunities of a remote workforce management policy, the areas that should be considered in the implementation of this policy, steps taken by the central government and the Tobago House of Assembly to advance this initiative, after which I will conclude. But Madam Presiding Officer, before going into the meat of my presentation, I would like to address some of the concerns raised by speakers prior. And the Deputy Presiding Officer, the member for Buku Mount Pleasant, indicated that such a policy as we are proposing today is not a now-for-now kind of solution that is required to execute this policy. And as such, Madam Deputy Presiding Officer, it is in this vein that I wish to refute the statement and the amended section of the motion which indicates that the previous administration neglected its responsibility to advance such a policy. Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer, the previous administration would have implemented and would have encouraged and made arrangements for flexible working arrangements to all workers to facilitate work from home for employees of the Assembly. And Deputy Presiding Officer, I want to draw the attention of this House to the Chief Administrator's Circular Memorandum number 15 of 2021, dated April 21st, 2021, which was captioned Reduction in the Public, reduction in the public service by 50%. And Madam Presiding Officer, this circular, inter alia, allowed for the rotation of staff, as well as it allowed for heads of departments to give the opportunity for their members of staff for flexible working hours, Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer. And it says the staff must be informed that Regulations 62 and 63 of the Civil Service Regulation gives heads of departments the right to vary actual hours of arrival and departure. And heads of department here means the Chief Administrator and other administrators. And Madam Presiding Officer, because we understand that the policy, there are several considerations, and this cannot happen overnight or in a short time because there are several things that needed to be put in place to enforce such a policy. Certain measures were implemented to facilitate flexible working arrangements for all employees across the Tobago House of Assembly. And as such, Madam Deputy Presiding Officer, to indicate that the past administration neglected its responsibility, Deputy Presiding Officer, it is quite untrue, and we want to debunk that statement, Deputy Presiding Officer. And Deputy Presiding Officer, as I continue with my discourse, I recalled in 2019, the world looked on as China, and to be exact, the city of Wuhan battled the deadly coronavirus. In mere months, this disease then quickly spread to over 200 countries worldwide. And as Trinbagonians rather, we often feel that God is a Trini, and as such, our twin island republic will not be made to suffer some of the devastation faced by many other countries. Deputy Presiding Officer, in this instance, Trinidad and Tobago did not remain untouched, and in March 2020, the country reported its first case of the virus. By this time, a worldwide pandemic was before us. Notwithstanding the valiant efforts of the government, the Ministry of Health, as well as the Tobago House of Assembly to limit the community spread of this unforeseen killer, it was eventually detected. And as the fight to combat the spread of the deadly miscreant ensued, this resulted in public health restrictions, which included the closure of schools and the suspension of non-essential services, both in the private and public sectors. Deputy Presiding Officer, the country held its breath as we tuned in daily to view the press conferences hosted by the Ministry of Health. And immediately we were required to adapt and to adjust to the new normal and a new way of life. Deputy Presiding Officer, as a mother of 2 young boys, the closure of schools, daycare centers, and the restriction of movement provided an increased challenge to our family. Instantly, I was required to juggle and manage various roles, all at the same time: parent, teacher, essential worker, wife, homemaker. Some days managing the multiple roles became quite overwhelming and emotional. And Deputy Presiding Officer, sometimes as parents, we were both deemed essential and were required to be at work. So our children are at home trying to navigate the online school with grandparents. You're distracted at work since there's a need to check in with them regularly, and at times even being excused from the office to rush home to attend to issues that may have arisen. This, Deputy Presiding Officer, was indeed a very taxing, physically, emotionally, and mentally period and experience for me, and I am sure for many other individuals. Deputy Presiding Officer, in looking back, I must admit that the days I worked from home were significantly less stressful. And it allowed me to supervise my children while performing professional duties as required. Excuse me. And Deputy Presiding Officer, I would even hasten to say, it is my view that the office called on me a lot more on the days that I worked from home when compared to me being physically present in the workplace. And therefore, Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer, I have seen firsthand the benefits as an employee working from home derived. Deputy Presiding Officer, there were lower stress levels, improved mental health, and work-life balance, as well as greater job satisfaction. Deputy Presiding Officer, as an employer, the implementation of the remote workforce management policy provides the Assembly with a larger talent pool of experts that can be engaged. There may be instances where specialists and experts required are not available in Trinidad and Tobago, and this policy gives the Tobago House of Assembly the opportunity and ability to engage and employ persons from all over the world and choose the very best without having to physically relocate them, since remote work can be done virtually anywhere. Outside of the benefits outlined above, and those expressed by the minority leader as he piloted this motion, globally there is a shift in the workplace. A number of organizations are transitioning to or adapting to hybrid work, and some organizations are even fully embracing remote work. In 2021, McKinsey, a world-renowned management and strategy consulting firm, survey of 100 executives across industries and countries, reported that 9 out of 10 countries are switching to a hybrid work model. The survey also confirmed that productivity and customer satisfaction increased during the pandemic. And Deputy Presiding Officer, as entities inclusive of the Tobago House of Assembly transition to remote and flexible working, there are opportunities for significant positive shifts in organizational culture, changes to rules, regulations, and in some instances, changes to laws. Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer, there are a number of areas which should be considered in the implementation of this remote workforce management policy, which the minority leader identified in his presentation. Notwithstanding, I would also highlight a few that may impact the implementation of this policy. Deputy Presiding Officer, this list is by no means an exhaustive one. And Deputy Presiding Officer, existing rules that we have mentioned before, regulations and laws, may require review to determine which applies and which can be followed. There may be a need to even amend existing legal and regulatory framework to allow for remote work. Workers or employees may require reskilling and retooling as new processes and technologies are introduced. Deputy Presiding Officer, we need to consider how confidentiality concerns are addressed when addressing official information from home, accessing, official information from home. What are the equipment requirements for digitization to facilitate accessibility and business continuity, even in the event of connectivity failures? Remote employees need the right technology and software to fulfill their individual duties from home, but also to collaborate with co-workers, communicate with supervisors, and generally feel a part of the team. Deputy Presiding Officer, is there a financial responsibility on the part of the Assembly for setting up home offices, consumable and telecommunications needed to allow for work from home? What are the ICT and IT infrastructure requirements, as well as what are the OSH occupational health and safety requirements when working from home? Additionally, what are the views of stakeholders, inclusive of the trade unions? And Deputy Presiding Officer, as I would have indicated before, these are all considerations that must be addressed as we implement the remote workforce management policy. Deputy Presiding Officer, I will now turn to steps taken by the central government and the Tobago House of Assembly to advance this work from home initiative. Earlier in his presentation, the minority leader indicated that the government is in the process of rolling out a work from home policy. And Deputy Presiding Officer, there are some inputs that I humbly believe can be of benefit and can assist the Assembly in the implementation of the formal workforce remote management policy proposed. Deputy Presiding Officer, a subcommittee of the Board of Permanent Secretaries and Heads of Departments in the Civil Service was established to develop the Work from Home initiative. This team conducted research and prepared a brief on work from home best practices. Additionally, a survey was conducted from a sample of public officers to obtain their experiences with working from home and to solicit their opinion on a work from home policy in the public service. Deputy Presiding Officer, 10 ministries, departments, and agencies, inclusive of the Tobago House of Assembly, participated in this survey developed under the guidance of the Central Statistical Office. Deputy Presiding Officer, from the 10 MDAs involved in the survey, 1,068 responses were received. 82% or 853 respondents indicated that they were able to work from home during the pandemic. Some respondents were not able to work from home for varying reasons, namely due to the lack of digital records and lack of remote access to official databases. Deputy Presiding Officer, I believe that we do not have to reinvent the wheel. Rather, the Assembly can use existing information available to assist in the establishment of the remote workforce management policy. Deputy Presiding Officer, there is a great opportunity for digital transformation as we implement this policy in the public sector. And in the Tobago context, some strides had been made to digitize and automate the financial management in the Tobago House of Assembly. Under the former administration Deputy Presiding Officer, the Assembly was included in a pilot project to support public financial management modernization and the implementation of an integrated financial management system. Deputy Presiding Officer, as you may be aware, currently the Assembly manages its allocation of over $2 billion via a single entry manual accounting system. The implementation of an integrated financial management information system will provide an automated, integrated solution to managing the finances of the Assembly. It would support budgetary planning, recording of payments, collection of revenue, and will allow for backup and recovery of data as well as improve accuracy, real-time access to information, and facilitate timely decision-making. The IFMIS will also facilitate double entry accounting and will allow the full adoption of IPSAS, accrual basis, which is International Public Sector Accounting Standards accrual basis. Deputy Presiding Officer, permit me to advise this Honorable House that advances has been made and the software was purchased. User acceptance testing was completed. Several training sessions were held with users which cover various modules of the IFMIS, such as budget planning and appropriation, purchasing and expenditure management, procurement, general ledger, revenue, and treasury management. Deputy Presiding Officer, upon completion and with full rollout of this project, the entire budget cycle will be automated and integrated across the divisions of the Assembly. This project will allow the relevant personnel to access information remotely and will therefore assist the Assembly in its efforts to implement this remote workforce management policy. Deputy Presiding Officer, as I conclude, the platform has been laid for this administration to build upon. The Tobago House of Assembly is a dynamic, multifaceted entity, and the broad brush or one-size-fits-all approach is not recommended in the formulation of this policy. As a responsible minority, we will put forward measures that, in our opinion, contribute to the development and advancement of the people of Tobago. We will also support initiatives of the majority that are in the best interest of the island. And Deputy Presiding Officer, it is in this context that I stand in support of this motion, and I trust that members on the majority will also support it, as there is a need to respond appropriately to changing times, circumstances, and situations. Deputy Presiding Officer, I thank you for the opportunity to contribute.